Alrighty, welcome back to another Supercoach video. My name is Jackson and welcome to the round 6 review. Another average week for me, went back a little bit, just the 18 rank, so still sitting within the top 500, which is good. But yeah, a lot to cover today. It's actually been a really big week, so obviously we'll go through the team review as normal. We'll cover the injuries, so a few really big ones, as well as kind of discussing trade out targets for them. Rookie targets and options both this week, and then I think a little bit more excitingly next week. I think we've got some good options coming up. And then finally, I guess I'll go over what trades I'm looking at. I haven't actually fiddled around with it all yet. Normally I at least have a think about it beforehand, so we'll do that on the fly. But let's have a look at the team itself. Thank you, Mr. KFC. All right, so I guess just running down from defense. So Lloyd and Laird kind of put out what you expected. Obviously not having Ridley this week hurt, but at least he provided a good little captain's loophole option, and it meant that I got Cozzy's score. So that was, very fortunate that the week that I had to field him, he actually scored well and restarted his cash gen. That's great. Bose, just the 92. He's been a little bit disappointing since I've traded him in, but look, things were improved a little bit with Ballard back, so hoping that he actually continues to improve. And with Collingwood this week, which should be another win for Gold Coast, maybe we see some more points there. And Heppel today, for example, that also plays that quarterback role, scored really well, so maybe we see that out of Bose. And then Short was definitely a disappointing one. Like there's not much more to say than that. Hooley coming back has really hurt him more than I would have liked. Chapman had a stinker too, which is going to play around or stuff up his cash gen, which is very annoying. Cozzy was great. I can't believe Highmore's still not back. You've got Dara Joyce, who wasn't any good. Webster's gone. Mackenzie's spud. I just can't believe they're not playing him. I don't know what they're doing. I didn't even cover what my trades were. I should quickly do that before I go on any further. So I did 2 trades this week. One was Josh Kelly out, and I got in Sam Walsh, who debuted with a 130. Love to see that. And Kelly put up his first sub 90 in a long time. So, pretty happy with that trade. And then secondly, because Dunkley got injured, I knew that I was probably going to try and do 2 upgrades this week. So I went early on McRae, which is not something I would normally advocate for. And sure enough, he put up a 37. That's a little bit of that Supercoach karma for you. But it should put me in a good position with trades this week. I hope. We'll find out. So in the midfield, McRae, just another lazy 140. He was great. Dunkley, 132. He was my vice captain this week. I went for him just because Greater Western Sydney is like his bunny side. They're the ones that he kind of ranks best against. Was going to be a dog's win. Was never in doubt of that. And he's just got that ceiling. He's got that upside. So really, really unfortunate. Firstly for Dunkley that he got injured. I've had a shoulder reconstruction myself. They're not a lot of fun to come back from, so wishing him the best. But yeah, for that to kind of happen, and he really could have gone 150. He could have been a great vice captain. And the four players I was thinking about: Dunkley, McRae, Gawn, and Grundy. Sure enough, the one that I actually ended up having to take the loophole on was the one that got injured and kind of didn't get to his full potential. So yeah, annoying. But yeah, a lot of people are going to have him, and trade out options for him this week are going to be a big discussion. Oliver was great again. Once again, like if you don't have him at sub 600k, he's bargain, get on. Merritt's had back-to-back good weeks now. Once again, felt like he could have gone a little bit bigger. There was a few touches in the first quarter that I didn't think were that bad, but Champion data really scaled him down, and that hurt him badly for the rest of the game. And Walsh, 130 on debut. He's someone whose highest I've been pumping a little bit. 144, 130 last 2 weeks, up to 119 average, which is huge. He must be in the top few for forwards. That endurance should have him hold till the back end of the year. He should be able to sustain his scoring. And we've seen him score well in losses, and it looks like Blues might have a few of them coming up. So yeah, big fan of Walsh at the moment. Just well ahead of where he should be at his age. Powell was great again. 2 huge scores back to back. Thank you, Powell, because he's really helping cash gen where a lot of the other rookies are not playing well. And then finally, like Goulden's hit a wall, Campbell's hit a wall. It's just really painful. Barry obviously didn't play. McNeil got subbed on in the first quarter and was a 50, and then Brockman didn't play. So I mean, these last 5, it's just looking really scary. And this is part of the reason why I'm not scoring it well, because even though my premiums are doing good, like, look at this midfield. That's great. Lloyd led, great. I mean, Short wasn't great, but almost everyone in the top 500 has him, and Bose was all right. You've got Braun and Grundy, great again, and then those forward premiums, all 100. So what's going wrong? And it's the rookies. 50 from McNeil, 36 from Chapman, 38 from Goulden, 37 from McRae, 27 from Rowe. That really hurts when, you know, I guess I had to field Cozzy as well, but of my 6 rookies I had to field. Oh, sorry, not including Powell because he's a gun, not including Warner because gun. But yeah, of these other 6, 5 of them drop scores below like 40 or 50. Just, yeah, painful. Want to get these off the field as quick as we can. Gordon and Grundy were both great again. I'm a little bit surprised Grundy actually got 150. Like, I didn't think of everyone that I had that he played the best game, but Supercoach doesn't always necessarily reward best game with best points. Oh, sorry. Zeeble was case in point. I mean, the halfback Seagull himself with the big 170. Like, is he a vice captain option for some of these games, or a captain option? I mean, maybe against some teams, probably not against Melbourne, who they play this week, but yeah, that's wild. Like, Gawn has got to be a big captain option this week. Wow. Yeah, like that. And I think Collingwood plays Gold Coast, who don't have a ruck at the moment with Wits out with that knee injury. So, that's looking real deadly, real deadly. Forward line, yes, Azibel was great. Tex was great. A lot of concern about the calf. I was totally on board with people trading him out. And in fact, if I didn't have other things pop up, like Clark and Campbell having sub problems, I probably would have traded Tex to Brayshaw this week, which would have netted me some points. But with the Dunkley injury in the forward line, with the Dunkley injury now meaning he's out, like, I'm going to have to hold Tex a little bit longer, which is a bit scary because they run into the hard part of their fixture now, kicking off with... well, actually, I think it's GWS this week, and then it's Port the week after. So Port the week after is one I'm a little bit more scared about. But GWS have hit form, so maybe Tex drops one of his poorer scores this week. And then, yeah, just forward rookies. Like, Warner is great. I think he's probably not going to make a ton of extra money from here, but forward line is just so devoid of any reasonable talent. I can't imagine a team that's in a good spot to trade him out. Rowe dropped a terrible... Like, his yo-yo scoring is actually insane. Wow. And yeah, McRae had to trade in early, and I was hoping for a little bit more than that, but yeah, anyway. And then Jones, 34. If he made money, it can't have been much. Does it show me? Yeah, 1K, let's go. And then Waterman, really unfortunate. So for those that don't know, effectively, Essendon wanted to bring in Phillips to ruck against Grundy. Now, Phillips did quite well against Grundy against Anzac Day last year, and actually he had a pretty good game this year as well. I mean, obviously Grundy's really hard to stop, but Phillips himself held his own, kicked a goal, that was great. And then it meant they could release Peter Wright into the forward line, which is where he's always been intended to play, not as a ruck. And with him in the forward line, that meant someone had to go, so it was either going to be Jones or Waterman, and unfortunately it was Waterman. So, yeah, I actually don't know how he gets back in the side now either, which is a little bit scary because, as we've said, there's not much rookie talent going on. He was one of the ones that probably could have scored a bit better than some of these other people I'm fielding, but I think he's stuck in the twos for a while. It looks like Brockman might be stuck for a while. Not sure about Berry. He might come back. And then Highmore, like, he should have already come back. So having 3 dead rookies going into the buys, but we're struggling now with cash generation and covering injuries is super scary. So, firstly, let's just get stuck into the injury. So there's 3 really big ones this week. Dunkley, who is presumably gone for the season if they opt for the surgery route. Even if they don't, he's still gone for 3 to 4 at least, and I'm not even sure that's a realistic option. So he's very likely a trade. Neale has kind of undergone surprise surgery. That news just came out late today. He's gone 6 to 8 weeks, is what we believe. So he is absolutely a trade as well. I just don't think there's any way you can hold him. And then finally, Dusty was concussed, which meant that he dropped a really poor score. But it should just be a 1-week concussion, back next week, unless there was some other problems with the eye socket, because he was feeling around a lot. But assuming it's just the 1-week concussion, he has to be a hold, which once again is really unfortunate because the types of rookies you're going to be fielding for him is just dreadful. So who can you target? In defense, there really isn't a lot of great options this week. I mean, if you don't have Lloyd or Laird, like, great, you can go after them. But Ridley, Houston, and May are all the interesting ones, and they all have money to lose. They're players that you could target either next week or the week after, when they get their poorer scores out of their rolling average. May is one I'll be considering. He should be sub 400k next week, which is a great price point. I mean, he's not going to be the highest scoring defender, but at that price, when we're struggling to make cash, that's 150k cheaper than at lead. It's it's 200k cheaper than Lloyd at the moment. There's a lot you can do with that. In the mids, we've talked about like McRae, Oliver, Walsh, Brayshaw, and even Petrarca seems like a good option now. Merritt at 590k seems to be okay value with a couple of games, but I wouldn't overly recommend him. Against Carlton, they might do okay. Neale is hopefully not one that actually many people jumped on that watched my stream, because I said don't avoid him. He looked like he was back from everything that I viewed, but wanted to see how he'd go with the Ed Curnow tag this week. And if you listen to that advice and you wanted to hold out a week, which is, I planned to get Neale in this week, if it wasn't for the surgery. So if you waited, you kind of got a little bit fortunate that we dodged the injury there. But yeah, Brayshaw is definitely the cheap option to go for this week. Oh, and the other things worth mentioning is Bont seems to be a really interesting option now with Dunkley out. It should mean more CBAs and a little bit less point sharing, which should be good for like McRae, Bont, Daniel, for example. And one other dog I'll actually recommend is a sneaky alternative choice. And then Lions from the Brisbane Lions. With Neale gone, he should be running the midfield. He's already been scoring really well. Top 8 mid so far. Was top 8 mid last year. Someone that you consider as a pod. And then Cam Guthrie for the Cats. I guess one of the reasons why I wasn't too interested in Guthrie is because they had a whole bunch of other players returning from injury, and then Danger. But with Danger going down now, it's like Duncan and Guthrie are the main two. And so there's a really good chance Guthrie goes anywhere between like 110 and 120 for the rest of the year from here. So another interesting pod there too. For the forwards, this is really tricky. I mean, obviously, if you don't have Zeeble or Impey, I would go after those. I wouldn't be bringing in Tex. I think the more top end options you could look after or look at as Zorko, who's I don't know what he is. I think he's roughly 500k, 485. That's the decent value. And then you've got Marshall, who came back today and scored pretty well. He's got that nice right forward DPP. I'm guessing he's got actually quite a high break even. But I think, considering these two, I would probably avoid both. And the reason why is we've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks just injury after injury after injury. And if that's taught us anything, we really should be trying to play a little bit safer with the primos we're going for at the moment and making sure that they're going to play out the rest of the year. So the problem with Zorko is he's had soft tissue injuries. A lot of last year, he's an older guy anyway. So yes, even with Neale out, getting more midfield time, he has a lot of scoring potential, especially at his price tag. I think playing a little bit safer makes sense for now. Marshall, somewhat similar situation with that fasciitis injury in his foot. He has already, missed the start of the year, come back, re-injured it, had a hot spot, something we don't really know, hasn't been explained properly, and he's come back and he's played a great game. We obviously have Ryder that should be coming back in next week after getting through the VFL that could affect his scoring as well. But at 560, I guess the long and short of it is at 560k with injury history this year and a foot injury that hasn't healed properly, probably, and a high break even, it probably makes sense to avoid Marshall for now. But once again, has a scoring potential. It's someone that we picked to be a top forward at the start of the year. So if you can't kind of go those options, and I mean, like Sidey scored a 120 today, but his form's been up and down. I don't know if you want to go after him. You might want to consider some of the cheaper forward options. So there's 3 that are worth having a look at. So Bailey Dale for the Dogs, who was a forward, now a defender. He's probably the one that I like the most of the 3 that I'm going to suggest. But the problem is that with Bailey Williams and then Caleb Daniel in Bulldogs defense, there's a lot of sharing as to who's the designated kicker. I think Dale's probably actually been the best of the 3 when it comes to taking kicks this year. But yeah, it does mean you're going to get some inconsistency, and then Dogs point sharing kind of makes him a little bit harder to pick. Hind from Essendon is another great option. So rebounding halfback, and he's really the only one that we have, and we love that role, right? Sard, McKenna, that's what Essendon's built a lot of its like attack out of defence on. So he's the one guy we have to do that. And he actually had a pretty poor game today, but still managed to salvage at 80. I guess the knocks on Hind is that, yeah, he has only scored over 100 once this year. The other 5 scores all been sub 100. And the type of role he's playing, which is like that pure halfback rebounding, speedster, they don't tend to average more than 90 at kind of max. So, yes, he's cheap. Let's have a look where he's at. 425. But, like, there's not much value left in that price. I think that's the problem. And then Bailey Dale, where's he at? 423. So very similar. And then the last one to consider, I guess, is Shai Bolton, who's had a really good 3 weeks. So I think the first couple of games were 80s. Then he had dropped to 29 against Sydney, which helped him get a little bit cheaper. And then he's gone 110, 99 in the last 3. The thing that makes Bolton interesting is that we know he scores better when he's got more midfield time. Obviously, with Dusty out next week, he's going to get a little bit of benefit from that. But also Prestia, who is usually one of their key mids, has apparently had an injury setback. So those two things combined should mean that Shai Bolton has some short-term scoring potential. And what was his price? 450. So I guess like he's a little bit more expensive than the other 3. But then at that point, you're also not that far off Zorko. So then it comes down to like, do you care more about prioritizing playing 22 games, playing the rest of the season, not 22 from here, but playing the rest of the season, or that scoring potential? And I think that's the trade-off you're looking at between some of those picks. So those cheaper ones, like Bolton, like Hind, don't have that injury history. All right, and then finally, I guess rookies to cover. So if you're looking for a downgrade option, so there's really 3 that you could consider. So the first is Bosana Valagi. Yep, Atu Bosana from North. So he scored 72 and 62 in his first 2 games. He's a forward option from Collingwood. He started off at Collingwood. Now he plays at North. He was a forward at Collingwood, which is why he's got that forward status, but he's actually playing behind the ball. He's got good job security, but obviously quite a heavy price tag. I guess the good thing is when you compare him to rookies that you're fielding in the forward line, these 30s and 40s, and oh Jesus, it's just awful. I mean, Jones has played every game and he's now almost a sideways trade to Boston Valagi, which is quite scary. But yeah, so I guess the problem with Boston Valagi is that you don't get that big downgrade money, but you do get job security and a bit better scoring than your average rookie. The other one in this boat as well is Jaya Farah, who plays for the Gold Coast Suns. He's mature age, was a forward, once again now turned defender, which is why he's got that forward status and that slightly elevated price tag. 83 and 59 in his first 2. The 59 game, which is the one he just played, actually had a much higher DT, just had a really bad ratio. So very athletic for his size, taller defender, but can kind of rebound. Does a lot of great stuff from what I've seen. I think the one concern is like his job security may not be as good as Boston Falagi, and he's also 10 grand more. So once again, you've got these 2 options here, these mature age forwards that are now playing as a defender role, which, I mean, that's the Zeeble Impey model that we've found success with so far, by the way. But they are more expensive, and if you're trying to downgrade to upgrade, then that's the knock on them. And then obviously the other one who I have is McRae. He's like 41, 37 in his first 2, not great scoring. He does have the DPP, and he's about 50k cheaper, so you can bank that money. So I'd say after those first 2 games, he doesn't have the best job security, but Collingwood looks like they're going to blood youth with how poor they've been. So he's an option. And then finally, just a few more for next week. So Frederick is the one to kind of keep your eye on and get excited about. Not that Frederick, the other Frederick for Port. So 123k defender. He scored an 87. Very exciting to have a potential downgrade option for someone like a Chapman coming next week. But once again, with all these, like, I would try and hold and wait for next week. We saw what happened with Jones. You don't want to repeat that. Murphy for Collingwood. So he scored a 47, 123k again. He played well early and did most of his scoring scoring early, and then kind of faded in the 3rd and the 4th, which is a little bit of a concern, especially given his mature age, but that's an option. And then finally, Collingwood debuted 2 other youngsters in Rantel. who's a 123k mid, but just scored the 25. And then Will Kelly, who's a 135k forward, and he scored 26. To be honest, didn't even notice him watch the whole game. So, I think Frederick's a really exciting option coming up next week. And then if you have to go this week, McRae's obviously the cheap option. Otherwise, I probably prefer Farah slightly to Boston-Valagi, but it would require more investigation on job security before you make a decision on which one you go after. And then... So then, finally, I guess, what are my trades this week? That's what I've got to figure out. So, Dunkley has to go, which is really unfortunate. And I think Brayshaw is a great option at 480k. He is well and truly bottomed out. He's at 100 average now, but outside of his 2 tagged games, he's averaging well over 120. So that's trade 1. I think that's pretty easy. And then I've got 3k here. So, I would love to get another forward option in here. So, Zorko or whatever that we talked about, but I just think going after mid safer, and I think someone like Goulden might have peaked. So I could get rid of him, and I mean, there's a lot of options in here for me. I could go, Guthrie. Steele's out of price range still. Bont's the one that I might consider. I mean, that looks pretty good to me. Let's just lock that in for now. We'll see how we go. This might change throughout the week, but I mean, all of a sudden, midfield's looking pretty good there. The only problem is that Rowe and McRae in the forward line isn't very good. Who Swan's got this week? It's Geelong, right? I mean, if Campbell even gets the game, do I want to play him over McRae? Probably back McRae against Gold Coast. And then back Chapman again, even though obviously Cozzy had the big game. I mean, Cozzy could go big against St Kilda. And then Freo's got West Coast. They've got the showdown. It'd be good to have Ridley back. So yeah, I think Grundy gone, vice captain, captain makes most sense. Having this midfield starting to look really good. And then I've kind of got spots for whoever I want left. Like Tom Mitchell's obviously getting really cheap. Could bring him in after the bye, but you want to see him turn around his form a little bit. Whitfield here. Well, I'm going to get May, and then maybe I get in Whitfield for one of the underperforming ones. All right. Well, anyway, that's my team. That's kind of the round review. Please let me know how you did, what trades you're thinking about, what problems you've got, and we'll talk more in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.